I'm going live. I'll wait for people to join. All right, we are officially live. Great. And it looks like YouTube actually approved my monetization. I didn't think that was going to happen yet. That was part of my whole intro spiel, was talking about how I don't have monetization on YouTube. So that's interesting.
Congrats.
Yeah, see how long that lasts for. All right, let me see here. All right, people will show up, so we don't have to worry about waiting for people to show up right away. So let me go through my intro. Is my stream working? I am new. This is the first time I've used StreamYard, so I'm figuring it out as I go. I think everything works. All right, so as people join later on, because it's going to take time for people to join, a lot of people just watch streams back. They don't have to watch it necessarily from the start. So let me just go through my basic intro. I was going to mention, as I just mentioned, I don't have monetization. Well, first of all, I'm wearing a stupid mask. I have COVID. I'm feeling a lot better today, but I've been wearing a mask around the house because my family miraculously still hasn't tested positive. I've had a couple really bad days. I've been downstairs, kind of keeping my distance, but they're all testing negative. So I don't think it's as contagious as powers that be wanted you to think. But in any case, I'm feeling a little bit better. The only reason I have the mask on is because when I'm upstairs with the family, I'm trying to keep my distance and do whatever I can to prevent the kids and the wife from getting it. So that said, mask off, proverbial mask and the literal mask. I will point out, I always do this because unlike other content creators, I don't have crappy t-shirts you're never going to wear so I can sell merch for support. I didn't have super chats and monetization, although now I do. But I don't have all those methods that other content creators have. And in addition to kind of ignoring my normal revenue streams and my normal jobs, and spending a lot of money on public records reports and FOIA requests and some of the reporting I've been doing, I've been spending a lot of money. So the only way I get support from you guys is if people help me out using my donation links. So, as usual, they're down in the description. I would appreciate it. Even if you could donate a few bucks, it all adds up. Diapers are expensive, as are FOIA requests and public records requests. So whatever you could do to help, I'm very, very thankful, and I would really appreciate it if you could show me some love. And also, I have my new locals, darthcrypto.locals.com. You can go there and support me that way. You could do a premium membership there, or even go beyond that, and you can contribute even more than the basic level, which is $5 a month. You can donate as much as you want there. So I'd really appreciate that as well. Now, more importantly, while we're here today, I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves just to give you some very quick background. A lot of you got to know me and met me through my work on the Rittenhouse case. And you know, with me and with a lot of us in general, a lot of conservatives, self-defense and your God-given right to defend yourself, your property, and your loved ones is crucial. And it's a right that is not to be taken lightly. And I certainly don't appreciate that right being attacked. And this recent case that I just learned about is another example. Although we don't have the video evidence and the live streams and everything, I think people got used to having all of that evidence up front. We don't have that in this case, but based on the testimony, based on the witness statements, based on all the evidence that we've seen, it certainly appears that we have a genuine war hero that's being charged with murder for a clear-cut case of self-defense. Now, I'm hoping eventually when some of my lawyer friends have time, they can contribute their thoughts as well. But for now, I wanted to talk to everybody involved. So in this case, we have Mike, who is Alejandro Gonzalez's attorney, who is the shooter in this case. He can discuss Alejandro Gonzalez's version of events and their theory of the case and exactly what's going on, what the state's attorney is claiming, and what he's up against. I'm also going to end up adding his GoFundMe for Alejandro in the description below. So once you hear everything Mike has to say, and once we go over this discussion, I'm hoping you're able to contribute to him. As much as I appreciate you guys contributing to me, it's also very important that people like this get your support as well, because he is being, in my opinion, he is being treated unfairly. I'll tell you right now, before I pass the mic over to Mike, my theory in this case, given the surge in murders we've seen across Democrat-run cities, but especially in Baltimore, I think they are dealing with a flood of homicides, and they are desperate to show the public that they are doing anything to clean up the mess that they themselves created. And I think they're willing to lynch a minority and a genuine war hero. I'm going to show you guys his recorded acts of valor in his records from the military, from the Army. I'm going to share that with you. And you can see he is one tough mofo. This guy was out there on the front lines, putting his life on the line while he's being fired upon to save his squad and to save his team. This guy is a genuine war hero, and I think they are more than happy to lynch this guy just to get a win in the win column, to say, hey, look, we're convicting people for these homicides. I think that's what we're seeing in Baltimore, and I think it's disgusting, and that's why I take this so personally. I'm going to let Mike take over, introduce himself, and then really quick after that, before we dive into the case more, we have one more attorney on the stream. He's actually anonymous, but he's a really smart attorney who helps me with this stuff on Twitter and helps me with some of the investigations I'm doing. So I'll let him say what he can say without exposing his identity and introduce himself as well. So Mike, why don't you go ahead and give your own background and explain who you are and how you came upon taking this case.
Sure, I'll lead with this. Is kind of unusual. It's kind of like imagine we're in World War II fighting the Japanese. We're invaded by aliens, and all of a sudden the Japanese and Americans have to fight together. Now, I'm not saying who the Americans are or who the Japanese are, but it's kind of that situation. I am as far left as most of your audience is, right? And I always have been. Never intended to hide that. Don't want to hide that. But in this case, there's, as far as I'm concerned, there's no politics involved. This is a clear self-defense case. An absolute war hero. Look, I spent 4 years in the Marines. I joined when I was 17 years old and got out when I was 21 years old. I served during peacetime. Closest thing that to combat I came to. I was on an aircraft carrier when one of our F-14s shot down a Libyan MiG back in 1989. That's not close to combat at all. It's the world's greatest fighting force, teasing essentially a inferior country. And anyway, without digging too much into those weeds, I got out just before the first Iraq War. I thought that one was BS. I thought the second one was BS. But it doesn't change the fact that people actually fought those wars. And especially the second war, I think we all doff our caps and we do whatever we need to do when we go to baseball games or, whenever we're asked to honor the heroes from Iraq, the quote unquote heroes from Iraq, or the people that are serving us. We all do what we need to do. But this is the first time I really saw an account of what one of them did. And it's eye opening. And he did that for 12 years. He was blown up by 7 IEDs, and he started his military career at the Mosul Chow Hole bombing that killed almost 20 Americans. The only reason he survived is because the person directly in front of him withstood most of the blast that in his direction and was blown to smithereens. My guy went out and did a mission that night. That's what we were asking of our troops over there. And that's what Alejandro Gonzalez did. So after 12 years and all these explosions, he's turned out of the military on a forced medical retirement. Probably a sound decision. He's got traumatic brain injury and some pretty severe PTSD. You can only ask so much of anybody. But I'll tell you, and I told Tucker this last night, he cut it out of the broadcast. Alejandro Gonzalez is 10 times the man I will ever be, or 95% of you will ever be. He's got the faces of 3 soldiers who served under him tattooed on his arm. They died, and that's his way of never leaving them behind. He came back from Iraq, and he was lost for a little while, really didn't know what to do. He, had a job protecting people, and then did it. Imagine that. Imagine patrolling in your Stryker vehicle, a couple of times a week. His job was to go out and find IEDs. That's why he got blown up 7 times. As often as not, when you're finding IEDs, you're running over them. That's your job for 12 years, and then you come back to America, and, what's compatible with that? So it took him a little while to figure out what he was going to do, but he figured it out. He had always been a boxer. So he opened up his own small business teaching at-risk youth how to box. Again, he's a protector. And now, should I go into the story?
Yeah, real quick. Anon Lawyer, do you want to put anything out there? Do you want to introduce yourself or have anything to say, or you just want to stand by?
I'll just say real quick, I'm a former right-wing activist turned civil defense attorney, and that's it.
Okay. I guess being anonymous means you don't have very much to add to those introductions. I would like to add, we're going to discuss the story, but one of the good things I can do here, even though, again, since I don't normally this is the first time I've used this account for doing a live stream show of this sort with like an interview. Normally I'm hosted on other channels that I've never used StreamYard and done this before, and as such, most of my followers, I get pretty good views on my videos. We're not going to get a lot of live viewers, but for everybody who's watching this on playback, I'm going to be able to add a bunch of sources to the description. So right now, if you're watching this live, there's not a lot in the way of resources in the description, but I'm going to add a bunch of links later on. So if you're watching this on playback, take a look at the description, and I'll link to a bunch of stuff, including documentation, some stories, some things on Twitter. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. And the other benefit here is Mike had very limited time on Tucker Carlson last night. On my Twitter, I did link the thread. I linked my thread about this case in the description. On that thread, I included Mike's interview with Tucker last night, so make sure to take a listen on that one. And this, he's wide open. He has as much time as he needs. He's not operating under the same time limit he had on Tucker's show. So take it away, Mike. Why don't you explain exactly what happened with Alejandro? Just run through the story, start to finish, and then I can hit you with some questions I have and see if we can determine some of the questions of law at play here.
Yeah, sir. I just want to add that, I see there's a chat feature, and I know you don't have a ton of live viewers, but to any live viewers that are there, I'll stick around and I'll answer every one of your questions to the best of my ability if you put them in the chat.
Yeah, if anybody, feel free to throw whatever you want in the chat. And since I just got approved for monetization, I would encourage you to do super chats, really big super chats. Like, just send me a ton of money, and if you do that, then you will get nothing for it, but you'll make me happy.
Right.
So there's that.
So here's the story. September 4th, Alejandro. I'm going to tell it a little bit more thoroughly. Last night on Tucker, I mentioned on Tucker that for time concerns, I left some stuff out. But the thorough story, the complete story is Alejandro left from Atlanta with his 2 kids and his fiance to go up to visit his stepfather. And while he was at his stepfather's house, his mom learned that he was in Baltimore, and she wanted to visit too. And Alejandro, he doesn't have necessarily the best relationship with his mom, but he deserves to see the grandkids. So he talked his 2 kids and his fiance and drives over to his mother's house, just to visit the grandma's house with the kids. When they arrive, they notice a bunch of cats hanging around the patio outside. And there will be a picture, I think, that we can put up of the building. And you'll see she's on the ground floor, and she's got a patio kind of terrace right outside her apartment. There were a bunch of cats hanging out there, and she wasn't ever known to be a cat lady, not to Alejandro. So he saw the bowls, and he asked why she's feeding the cats. And she explained that the guy upstairs, the neighbor upstairs, he doesn't like to take his trash out to the dumpster, so he piles it up on the balcony instead. And she further explained that, when the trash leaks, it seeps down through the cracks of his balcony and falls down onto her patio and attracts mice and vermin. So by feeding the cats, she keeps all that away. Alejandro says, well, that's not any way for you to live. I mean, this is your patio. You shouldn't have to worry about garbage dropping on your head when all this is happening. Why didn't you say something to him? And she explains further that she had tried saying something to him. He's in his 20s. He's not respectful. And what she's going to do as a 66-year-old. There was also some conversation about, every now and then they'd open up the door upstairs or the windows, and, just waves of marijuana smoke would pour down to where she could smell it. And she one day said something to her upstairs neighbor. I'm not going to say his name. It's public. If you look hard for it, it's not even that hard to find. But he's a gang member. It's a gang with national reach. As far as I know, the gang isn't public. But we're not looking to poke the bear here. We don't want a chapter of that gang in Atlanta chasing down Alejandro and his family. So we're not looking for retribution or to disrespect anybody or anything like that. So I'm not saying the victim's name. But back to the marijuana smoke pouring out of the apartment, she said something to him about, the kids they have in the apartment being around that kind of secondhand smoke, probably not the best for their health. And he started screaming at her about telling him about how he's raising his kids and not showing him enough respect and all the rest. So there's been this history between upstairs and downstairs. And Alejandro, unbeknownst to him, got involved in a little bit of that history because his mom shared it with him, and he said, "Well, he can't be calling you a bitch, Mom. I'm going to have a talk with him." So, sure enough, he comes out onto the balcony, and Alejandro goes up to him, and sure enough, it immediately goes off the rails. The gangbanger, starts screaming at Alejandro, screaming at his mother. It's a nice day. It's September. They're outside. I told you, you effing bitch. You aren't going to be living here, and you wait right here. We're going to take care of this. We're going to take care of this right now. This isn't going on any longer. I don't know exactly. Obviously, I wasn't there. Who was there was, and who I'm getting this from is Alejandro's fiance. She's the one that hired me and brought me into the case. I've also spoken with Alejandro's mom. She backs this story up. And I've also visited the scene and spoken with neighbors who didn't see the killing, but did hear the beefing. So the beefing's verified. So they're beefing back and forth, and Alejandro decides he's getting his family out of there. He puts his kids in the car. Sierra's, his girlfriend, his fiance, is in the car. His mom, and what they're doing at this point is now they're going to drive up to New York City to see Alejandro's grandmother, the kid's great-grandmother. She's 94 years old. COVID is kind of slowed down, it seems, so it seemed like it was kind of a safe time to go up. And that's their intent. So he's got his kids in the car, Sierra's in the car. Mom's struggling with her dog crate, trying to get that in her car, when the gang member comes downstairs, crashing through the common door into the yard with a large wooden chair. And he raises it over his head, bashes it against the sidewalk, picks up one of the heavy wooden legs, and advances on Alejandro with it. And, there's no mistaking intent here. He's using the leg as a club. So Alejandro shot him 3 times, cleared the chamber, dropped the gun, got in his car, got his kids to safety. He's worried about additional gang members showing up. He's worried that all that about, you stay right there, I'll be right down, you stay right there, is about this guy calling additional gang members. So he wants to get out of there before anybody else shows up. And he does. Mom doesn't. Mom sticks around and tells the police everything about what happened. Alejandro drives back to Georgia, checks himself into a VA hospital, and calls the police and turns himself in from there once his kids and fiance are safe back in Atlanta. There's something else I needed to tell you, and I'm forgetting it right now, but it'll come back to me. But that's essentially, the story. It's the purest case of self-defense and defense of others that I can imagine. In Maryland, the law of self-defense is this: you can't provoke the attack. You do have a duty to retreat. It's possible. You have to use force commensurate with what the force is used against you. All 3 of those conditions are met, and there's a 4th one too that's escaping me right now. Alejandro, sure, he had words with the guy upstairs, but words aren't provocation. Words are just words. Alejandro's trying to retreat. He's trying to leave when the guy comes downstairs with the chair. The club that the guy had is deadly force, and so is the gun. So it's commiserate force. I honestly don't know where the state's going with this case. I called the lead detective on the case, and I asked him about all the facts. And he says, "Yeah, the facts you have, everything that you've been told matches up with what I've got." I called him after I went to the scene. I wanted to make sure I'd seen everything for myself and understood everything. And I said, "So then, you'd say this is a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense, right?" And he said, "No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far." I don't know why not. I mean, I'm pretty sure the reason a detective isn't going to say it was a clear-cut case of self-defense is because the detective doesn't want to be called to the stand and have to testify, for the defense in a case the prosecutors are bringing. So he steers clear of legal judgments. That's the only thing I can think of. Um, oh, gang member. How do we know he's a gang member? I asked the detective. The detective told me that his girlfriend told me he was trying to withdraw himself and change his life and leave the gang. I'm not sure if that's allowed. And then the other way we know he was a gang member is because there was a memorial service at the scene. You know, the candles in the streets, that type of thing, stuffed animals and flowers. There were gang colors hung at the memorial service. So there's no doubt that he was a gang member. Um, that- that's pretty much the story. Now,
Yeah, it's common in situations like this. Sorry?
I guess the story is that after he turned himself in, they obviously went down and got him. He's been sitting in a Baltimore City jail with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, worried that you know at any moment a gang member is going to come around the corner and shiv him. Um, you know, I don't think gangs um, are happy when any one of their members is killed, and they don't care who did it. So he's definitely worried. He didn't want any of this publicity. The reason we're doing this publicity is because I need to raise him about $100,000 for the legal team that I'm looking to put together. I'm not trying this case by myself.
Yeah.
I'm bringing in one of the best firms in Maryland. And, you know, obviously on top of that, there are experts and their fees and stuff like that. So we're looking to raise money on Alejandro's GoFundMe for experts, additional lawyers, and then also he's not providing for his family right now, so some will go to that. And then at the end of all this, as I said, um, this is gang related, and his address is people can get it. People can find out where he lives. So we want to relocate him after all this is done. When he got back from Iraq, he started his small business, and he just bought his first house. So he's going to have to sell that and buy another one. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, it brings me to one of my initial questions, which was, where do we stand on bail?
So I put in for one bail review. It was denied. Put in for as many as you want. And pretty much everything I just told you, I put in that bail review. You know, I didn't um, tell you everything in the bail review because we haven't really talked about his war record. You alluded to it in the beginning that you're going to be putting up.
Yeah,
You know,
we'll look at some of that stuff.
and by the way, everything that you're going to put up is available on his GoFundMe as well. So I've been working with this girlfriend who has 2 duffel bags full of medical records and service records that she has gone through, and we pulled out, you know, various pieces that indicate the reason he's been giving awards in Iraq. So yeah, on the bail review in there, I put in information about you know, his war record, establishing that he had been victimized by 7 IEDs in the Mosul Chow Hall bombing, and that he suffers from traumatic brain injury and PTSD. And I told the judge, you know, it's difficult for him to work with me, because when he comes into the room to visit the lawyer, it's the only time he can really let his guard down in any way at all. I mean, he's sleeping with one eye open, worried about gang retribution. And that's not to mention all the just general commotion and noise inside of Baltimore City Jail, aggravating his PTSD and traumatic brain injury. So he gets in with me, and you know, it takes a little while to let him get to a place where he can actually help me with his case. There's some shaking, and I'm not sure if anybody, how many of your watchers have seen people with severe PTSD. But you know, you've probably seen movies where PTSD has been presented in a foxhole, and that's kind of what I see when I see him in the lawyer's room for the first certain amount of time, and then there will be breakdowns, when we talk about his Iraq service, there'll be breakdowns where we just have to stop. We have to stop talking about his family, about his case for 5 minutes so he can go through whatever he needs to go through and then come back to me and, help out again. So I know that, in his circumstance, the conditions in that jail may well be cruel and unusual, as applied to him. So what I've asked for is home confinement. I don't mind that they're taking this trial. We'll beat it at trial. Full confidence that we'll beat it at trial. I hate that he's been in jail for 3 months, and I want him out. So the first bail relief was denied. Bond relief was
Why?
denied.
What justification did they deny bail originally? What type of flight risk does he pose?
I've got the order right here.
Or are they implying that he's a danger and need to be released? Because that would be absurd.
So in Maryland, for every crime except crimes involving bodies, there's a presumption that bail will be granted. But once there's a body, there's a presumption against bail that has to be overcome. Now, I said, typically in any kind of bond hearing, the two things they're concerned about is likelihood of flight and future dangerousness. And I addressed both. I said, look, he turned himself in. He came back here to face these charges. He's not going anywhere. He's not a flight risk. And I said, as far as future dangerousness goes, the facts of this case show that the gang club next to him, he was attacked by a person with a club. Unless he's attacked by a person with a club again, he's not a future danger. The order, upon consideration of defendant Alejandro Gonzalez's emergency petition for bond review and release to home confinement, filed on November 10th, 2021. It is this 19th day of November 2021 by the Circuit Court for Baltimore City, ordered that defendant Alejandro Gonzalez's emergency petition for bond review and release to home confinement is hereby denied.
What about for sympathetic release pending trial? Due to his medical condition, traumatic brain injury, and PTSD, is that an avenue you've attempted to take?
It was in the emergency petition for bond release. That's what I hit hardest in the petition. I included medical records that I'm not going to put online or share with anyone because they are medical records. But I can tell you the medical records that I included. The way I did this was I did a not quite generic petition, emergency petition for bond that referenced a document that I delivered to judges' chambers. I also delivered it to prosecutors. The document I delivered had his service medical records, which show PTSD and TBI, and show that he's been blown up, a total of 8 times over the 12 years of service. So that there's no doubt in her mind that, he's been diagnosed and 100% medically retired for PTSD and TBI. But, it wasn't persuasive. I just tried again, essentially went the same route. This time I've given her a first sergeant that served with Alejandro that is willing to allow Alejandro to move into his house. We'll see if that changes anything. It's doubtful, but, I'm leaving no stone unturned.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, bond. That was a big question I had. Is I didn't understand what the deal was in Baltimore, what they did in Maryland specifically, but it sounds like their system is not ideal. If you have somebody in a clear-cut case of self-defense, I mean, you're saying if there's a body involved, right? So what if there's something that would just be negligence and they're not even accusing you of murder? They would still presumption of no bail?
Murder in any of its degrees, there's a presumption against bond.
Okay. All right. Well, let's run through the facts of the case because this is what I'm seeing. Now, I'm going to be pulling up. We'll review the we'll look at the actual law. We'll look at the self-defense law, which it's pretty standard. What they have in Maryland is pretty standard with other states. There is no stand your ground, so you have a duty to retreat. That is obviously a big one. And they do have some castle doctrine. We can get into that and how that comes into play. I'll explain that to everybody. And then you can comment on that as well. Now, just to give everybody an idea, let me show everybody where the incident occurred, and then we can go over the facts and explain how things played out. So, let's do this. There we go. All right, so here, now, the incident occurred where essentially right here, let me make this easier. So, depending on there's a disturbance in the grass here. I don't know when this was taken, obviously, so it's not related to the actual shooting. But this hill right here, it was either on that hill or on the sidewalk that his body was located, right?
Yeah, look at the where the steps meet the sidewalk and the angle or right angle, I should say. That's pretty much where his body was located.
So was he going down the steps?
What's that?
Was he moving down the steps?
I think he was coming down the lawn.
Down the lawn.
Obviously, I wasn't. I was told he was coming down the hill. I think he was coming down the grass.
Okay, that was my understanding as well. I had posted. Now I know you didn't want to get into his information. I don't care. I'm going to be posting it. I've already posted it online. It's all in the public records. But I understand if you don't want to start naming anybody, you don't have to. You can use whatever terms you want to refer to them. But it is in the documentation that I do feel is important to share. So we're going to have to do that, unfortunately. If they want to come at me for talking about them, I welcome. They're more than welcome to try. So we have the statement of charges here. Doesn't say anything, doesn't specify.
All those are my redactions, and it's also my highlighting.
Okay. All right. So everybody can see what I want everybody to see what the state is claiming, and then I'll discuss my analysis, what my view is, and Mike can elaborate from his legal perspective what they're claiming. And unfortunately, or fortunately rather for him, it's unfortunate because this should be relevant to the question of bond. The fact that the state's not really claiming anything. They're not disclaiming. Now, in Maryland, the burden in a self-defense claim is the burden on the state to prove that it was not self-defense, or is the burden on the defendant to prove that it was self-defense?
Once you plausibly allege self-defense, this burden shifts to the state. The state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it wasn't self-defense.
That it wasn't self-defense. Okay. All right, good. So it's similar, same as with Wisconsin. All right. So to show everybody here, let me just go full screen for a second and zoom in. All right. All right. So it's September 4th at approximately 2,400 hours or 2,040 hours. Dispatcher notified investigator of the homicide unit to call for a male seriously shot multiple times. At this time, along with Detective Sergeant, responded to the scene to assume control of the investigation. Upon our arrival to the scene, we were met by the primary officer who stated upon his arrival he observed an unknown black male who was later identified, blah, blah, blah. I guess it doesn't really say it on there, but it is in my tweets, obviously. On the sidewalk, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the body. Officer rendered medical aid to the victim until Medic 22 arrived and transported him to Sinai Hospital. Upon arrival to the hospital shortly thereafter, the victim succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced deceased. The mobile crime lab was notified, and a technician responded to process photography of the scene. You're really quick, Mike. You're waiting on discovery now?
Yeah, that's right. It should come next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay. The scene, which was primarily in the front and on the sidewalk, consisted of a live 9mm cartridge, 3 9mm casings, bullet fragments, a broken chair in the grass, and a broken chair leg on the grass. Blood in victim's clothing. The office of the chief medical examiner was notified and responded to Sinai Hospital to cover the remains of the victim for post-mortem examination. Investigations revealed that Miss Connie Gonzalez Brown, who resides at the residence, was having ongoing disputes about trash and marijuana smoking with the neighbors who reside above her in apartment B2. The residents from apartment B2 are blah, 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 and her boyfriend, who was the victim, was blah, blah, blah. The most recent dispute, which occurred approximately 1 week ago, resulted in him cursing Miss Brown out and calling her a bitch. Nice. On September 4th, Miss Brown's son, Alejandro Gonzalez, came to visit from Georgia, and Miss Brown advised him about the ongoing issues with the neighbors. And the most recent incident where, with Mr. Whatever, Miss Brown stated that her son, Alejandro Gonzalez, confronted Mr. Blank about the incident and stated to him not to call his mother a bitch, and that if he has anything to say, he can say it to him. Miss Brown stated that she keeps a registered Glock 43X 9mm handgun in her home for protection behind the front door in the bookshelf, and her son knows where she keeps it. The verbal dispute escalated. Mr. Upstairs went into his apartment and grabbed a chair, broke it on the ground to use a piece of the leg as a weapon, and began moving towards Mr. Gonzalez. At this time, Mr. Gonzalez shot Mr. Upstairs multiple times with the Glock 43X handgun. Mr. Gonzalez then got into a Nissan sedan, which was also occupied with his girlfriend and his 2 children, and fled the area. Ms. Gonzalez was transported to police headquarters homicide section to be interviewed, and her account of the incident was memorialized via audio-video recording, and she reiterated the above sequence of events and positively identified her son, Alejandro Gonzalez, as the individual who shot her neighbor. Ms. Brown also stated that her son was an Army veteran who had combat time in Iraq and Afghanistan and suffers from PTSD. All events occurred in Baltimore City, City of Maryland. Now, I'm
let,
not...
let me add something that's important regarding the gang. Miss Gonzalez was taken into protective custody. They moved her out of that apartment and into another apartment because obviously she was a witness in this. At some point, she went back to her apartment to retrieve, move all her stuff out. And her apartment had been broken into, and pictures of Alejandro had been stolen off, wherever you keep pictures in the house. So that's
Jesus.
That's a really scary thing. We are absolutely convinced that it was the gang that broke into the apartment, and they not only stole his pictures, took his pictures out of the house, they carved up all our furniture and destroyed a lot of stuff inside the apartment as well. We're convinced it was a gang. We don't think it was kids in the neighborhood. And why would anybody steal pictures of Alejandro for any reason other than to use them? Look, you see this guy, you know what to do. So that's where things stand right now.
And when did that happen?
In the days after the September 4th, I don't know exactly. I mean, like I said, my investigation has involved talking to the girlfriend and talking to the mother, both of whom witnessed this, going to the scene and talking to other people who witnessed, heard a lot of yelling, didn't see the shooting. Nobody has told me that they've seen the shooting. I talked to a maintenance person for that apartment complex who told me that the person who was shot was not very nice to anybody, and that he had seen Facebook posts after where people actually had celebrated his passing. Oh, his girlfriend.
But you said, wait, you said there's a bunch of Facebook posts where they're talking about this guy, people like in the area.
Yeah, yeah. So I know there's Murder Inc. spelled INK.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Instagram account. I'm not very good with social media, so I've been looking for this stuff forever. I've been trying to find um, whatever I can find regarding the deceased in this case, and there's just not that much of a trail. So if there are any social media experts out there that might be able to help me out,
Yeah, I'll be able. I'm gonna find a lot more. I've only just gotten into this today, so everybody knows. But for all my viewers are more than aware of this, Mike, you aren't aware, but I'm pretty good at researching. So I'm going to be digging in and getting a lot more information. I didn't know that, so that's huge. So I'm going to be looking for what was said about the assailant in this case. I'm referring to him as an assailant. For those who don't remember, in the Rittenhouse case, there was a lot to be made about. The left was saying that Judge Schroeder was so horrible because he was saying that the victims couldn't be called victims, but they could be called looters and rioters, right? And there's a very, very common sense reason why in a self-defense case, you don't call them victims. In this case, Watkins, the guy who was shot, if you refer to him as a victim, you're literally saying that Alejandro murdered him. He's guilty of murder. Because if he was killed in self-defense, then Alejandro was the victim of the attacker. And the attacker was killed in self-defense, which means Alejandro, or in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, Kyle was the victim. So the entire question of Kyle Rittenhouse's, or in this case, Alejandro's guilt, is whether or not they killed somebody in self-defense. If you refer to the person they killed as a victim, you're already condemning them as a murderer, saying that it wasn't self-defense. So that's why it's so important that you don't refer to these people as victims, decedent, or even assailant, because in this case, he was the assailant. Alejandro Gonzalez was not. He was the victim. So just so everybody understands semantically why those terms are so relevant and why I use them in that specific way, as do other people.
Now, the other thing that you'll notice from the statement of charges that I don't mind sharing with you, they name another resident from that apartment, and that resident was the decedent's girlfriend. She possibly could have been a state witness. I'm not sure if she would have been, being hooked up with a gang member and no snitching and all that. And I haven't seen anything yet. Like I said, I'm still waiting on discovery. I haven't seen anything that indicates she gave any kind of statement or anything like that. But I can tell you now, she won't be giving any more statements because she went to her brother's memorial service. And
her brother?
Her brother. Yeah, she was born in 97. So I don't know how old her brother was. Probably.
No, I thought you said, wasn't it? I thought he was her boyfriend.
That's right. The decedent is her boyfriend. She went to her brother's memorial service.
Oh, her brother also died.
Another murder victim in Baltimore.
Oh, just one of the bajillion. Okay. I didn't know. I was confused. I thought you were referring to...
Girl service. She got to beefing with somebody, and she is yet another murder victim in Baltimore.
Jesus.
So, right now, the two competent witnesses, actually, there's probably three competent witnesses. There's Alejandro Gonzalez's fiance, Sierra, his mother, Connie, and his son, and we're not going to say his name, his 13-year-old son. He also had a 5-year-old son. They are incompetent. They cannot testify, or he cannot testify. The wrong place to be bringing up pronouns, all right? Wrong podcast for that. So as far as I know, there are only 3 witnesses to this, and they're all Alejandro's family members. So the state's going to have a really hard time making out any kind of case, especially with the evidence that the police found. A broken chair with a chair leg next to the deceased. that's separate from the rest of the chair. You put all that against the backdrop of Alejandro just being an absolute war hero. And I can't tell you how many people he served with that have reached out to me and said they want to help any way they can because he was just a good dude. And you'll see that in the Twitter stream too.
Mhm.
Other veterans that know Alejandro that are vouching for him. So, we're hopeful that this ends up coming out the right way. Unless
Yeah, I mean, it
there's,
sounds like there's an active hit out on him. If they broke into his mother's house and stole photos of him, I just tweeted that out immediately because I think that's a major breaking detail. I'm sure we'll get into more of those, so I'm live tweeting it pretty much. But that's terrifying.
that is,
Did they have so? I guess the police wouldn't have had anybody surveilling the area after that initial night. Plus, they're busy enough in Baltimore dealing with this stuff as it is.
yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me run. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
let me.
I'm going to have to see Discovery. Hopefully, they continued their investigation and went into that house and investigated the break. I kind of doubt they did. I kind of doubt they dusted for fingerprints or anything like that. I kind of think that, to the extent that it was done by gang members, I think they're probably polished enough to know to, wear some rubber gloves or not to leave fingerprints or any kind of evidence behind if it's at all possible. But like I said, I'm hoping for Discovery next week, and I'm hoping I have a much clearer idea of what the state's case is, because right now none of it makes any sense to me.
They're not providing any counter to your narrative. Now, let me ask just to clarify. We didn't finish running through this, so let me run through this so all the viewers know exactly what happened and they can see it visually. So the residences in question are first floor and second floor. Which one? First, second, or third?
First and second.
So this one and above.
I can't really see how you're. So the one you can see the residence on the right. If you go up the sidewalk.
Is it these two, this one and above, or the next two?
I'm sorry?
Well, I just highlighted these. Is it those?
Oh yeah, there you go. That's those two. That's right.
Okay. All right. So Alejandro's mother lives on the first floor. The decedent and assailant in this case is up on the second floor. He was obviously leaving his trash outside, dripping garbage onto her patio, causing this disagreement of which she couldn't do anything. Now, when the altercation occurred, where was Alejandro's vehicle relative to this vehicle on the street?
Obviously I wasn't there, but it's my understanding it was pulled just a little bit forward, toward the sidewalk, but not all the way to the sidewalk. So maybe half the distance.
Okay.
That's
well, I mean, roughly. You know what? Let's do this.
On the scene said this is where they were beefing.
All right, so let's do this. I want to give a nice visual so we can discuss this in detail with a nice visual. So we got, let's say the vehicle was probably around here, right?
I would back it up just a little bit, not that close to the sidewalk, but it's
just a little forward from where this car is.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, right? Okay. Now, the guy had come out of his house after threatening him. He had come downstairs. Where's the stairs, the exit to come once you go down the stairs? Over here somewhere?
You see the door to no, it's the door to the left of your red marks there, right at the top of the stairs.
The middle one?
Yeah, I think that's the common door that everybody goes.
I can see the stairs right here, so then that goes inside. All right, whatever. So the guy comes out, though, holding a chair. He smashes that chair out on the lawn over here, right? That's where they found the pieces of the chair, according to the police report. We just read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is the important part, everybody. This is what I want you to understand. Alejandro's vehicle was down here with his fiance and his two kids in the car. Did he have his mother in the car at that point?
No, his mother was in a separate car trying to get her dog in. Now, the mother's car would not be in this camera view. It was down the road a little bit in front of that car.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just wasn't sure. I just wanted to double check.
He specifically said she tries not to park under any of the trees because, bird droppings.
Okay. Okay, so we have Alejandro's car a little bit further forward than this one. It's just easy to do this. I'm just gonna fill it in. So that's his car here, and he's standing here on the sidewalk with his family loaded in the car, right? So
Right.
as this guy comes out of the house, comes out of his house, he breaks the chair on the lawn over here up in this area, right? That's where they find the broken pieces of the chair. Now you'll notice this is all a hill, right? So this is going downhill. So
Sure.
from that point, after he breaks the chair and he's going towards Alejandro, do we have any direct testimony from the witnesses or Alejandro himself specifying as he raised up that bludgeoning weapon, the leg of the chair? Was he running at him or was he walking towards him slowly? What have you been told?
Says he was running.
He was running?
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is important to remember, everybody, because you're talking about, just try to remember what we dealt with whether it's Chad Reed, which I've done a lot of reporting on, or in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, right? There's always a lot of discussion, especially when you're talking about if somebody poses an imminent threat to great bodily harm or death, right? In every state, virtually every state, the only time you're allowed to use deadly force is if you reasonably perceive imminent threat of great bodily harm or death. So in this case, when somebody's running at you, they don't have to be within 3 feet. In the case of Chad Reed, for instance, a lot of people argued he didn't represent an imminent threat of death because he was 12 feet away. So unless he was in motion running towards him, you can't justify that as saying, he was in imminent danger. In this case, he was running towards him, but this is the thing. You don't only have to rely on Alejandro's testimony, right? Because look, this is all pretty steeply downhill. So even if he started walking towards him with a club, once you start going down the hill like that, you're naturally going to start to run anyway, unless you're seriously fighting it and you're kind of walking backwards and doing the Weekend at Bernie's move. So you're not running. It's pretty much impossible. It sounds like he had his arm up. He was ready to start swinging the thing. So I totally believe Alejandro that he was running. Just the laws of physics suggest that it's highly probable that he would have had to be running because it would have taken much more effort to actually not run. He was clearly intent on attacking, given everything he had said and given the situation at hand, not to mention his record as a violent gangbanger and all that. So I think this steep incline on the hill is particularly relevant. If I had Anon lawyer can specify to that, but if I had Andrew Branca on this stream, he just actually DM'd me and told me he's still too busy doing his work stuff for the Kim Potter case, so he can't make it right now. But I'm going to discuss this with him later and share, maybe do a video with him and we can discuss it together. But it's pretty clear to me that in that context, he would have obviously represented an imminent deadly threat, running towards him with a leg of a chair, which is a bludgeoning weapon, right? Now, the other key question is retreat. Now, if you don't have stand your ground wherever you may be, and in the case of Maryland, there is no stand your ground, you have a duty to retreat. Now, that does change with Castle Doctrine, which we can get into in a minute, but he would have had a duty to retreat if possible, but you don't always have to retreat. So in this case, try to remember what I explained. His car is right here. This green box is car, right? Is car. Man, COVID really screws up your brain, fogs up your brain. This green box is Alejandro's car. He's standing with his back up against his car on the sidewalk right here, right?
Probably got a door open trying to buckle his 5-year-old in or
Say
trying.
again? I couldn't hear you for a second. Say again?
I said he's probably got a door open trying to buckle his 5-year-old in or, they're getting ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. So he's trying to get his kids in the car. He's got his back up against the car. So at this point, with the attacker running towards him with this weapon in his hand, a leg from the chair, if he were to flee, even if the prosecution were to make the argument that he had a duty to retreat, a duty to flee, and he didn't do that, if they try to make that argument, they're already going to lose the case, because if fleeing in that case would have meant running to the right or the left down the sidewalk, he would have been leaving his 2 children and his fiancée directly in the path of the assailant running at them with a weapon. So for defense of others, he still couldn't have left them without endangering their lives. So he didn't have a duty to retreat in this context, A, because he couldn't retreat, and B, because even if he did have an avenue to take out of there, he would have been putting the lives of others at risk, which he doesn't have to do. So I think he's covered on the retreat aspect. I'm not sure what the state's case is here, unless they are simply claiming that the assailant, the decedent in this case, didn't represent a deadly threat for some other reason.
Yeah, Alejandro, this club was substantial. So,
say again.
Alejandro assures me the club he had in his hand was substantial, but obviously,
You still don't have any photos, right?
I don't. That's
I'd really like to see photos.
Discovery. I very much looking forward to Discovery and seeing where the state is on any of this. They haven't responded. I mean, I've said, look, I just don't see how you don't see this as self-defense. I don't see how you're even charging this as murder 1. A person does not bring their 2 kids and fiance to grandma's house to murder somebody. That's just not plausible. In any world I've ever been in, it's not plausible that you go visit your mother to murder her neighbor with your kids, and then the other question I asked, and then you're going to tell me that the only thing I can think of is that they're saying he broke the chair afterward to create some kind of evidence. Maybe the 2 of them got into a beef, and Alejandro
said that, or you're just speculating on what somebody could say?
I'm speculating on what I'm trying to figure out what the state could possibly be thinking here.
Yeah, they don't. I can't imagine any theory of the case that they could propose that counters what seems to have happened to based on the evidence that we have right now.
Right. No.
I agree with you. I mean, other than unless they were to suggest that type of weapon didn't represent an imminent threat, which doesn't make sense. Anon lawyer had some questions. Let's see, what did you want to ask?
Yeah, 2 questions on the shoot itself.
And hey, can you boost your mic volume? You're a little quiet.
Let me see. I'm kind of a boomer. What about now?
Go again.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's not too loud. Just get a little bit closer. I'm sure it'll be fine if you're a little closer.
All right. I am on a headset, so hopefully.
Yeah, just pull it closer to your mouth.
All right. First question I had is, how far was he from the car when he pulled the trigger? Second question, and it's earlier in time, when did he get possession of the firearm?
Oh, good. That's a good question, right? So the firearm in Maryland, firearms, handguns are required to be registered. And you can't carry a handgun on your person or in your vehicle. This handgun was registered to his mother, and she kept it on the bookshelf next to her front door. So, as he's packing up with his kids and, wife and getting his mom hustled out with the dog crate, he grabbed the gun.
So you got the gun after he was
threatened.
After the guy said, "Stay right there. We're going to take care of this right now. Don't you go anywhere." He was rushing to get everybody in the car to get them out of there, but he got the gun just in case while they were trying to get out of there, they were attacked.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what's been related to me.
I guess that the other questions I have kind of relate to that apartment building in general. Have you found any prior police reports or apartment complaints to management regarding that?
No, I stopped by the management office and asked for that. They told me I had to come back with an officer. I also asked them if they had any video surveillance because there are video cameras in that apartment complex, but unfortunately, that's a dead spot. There's nothing there. I verified all that with the police, and once this could be on me, but we're very early in this case. We've got time to do further investigation if we need to. But the police said no, there was no video and nothing useful from the management. This is a very large apartment complex. I'd say there's at least 200 or 300 apartments. There's probably 20 or 30 buildings that look like this.
The police said that was a dead zone?
Camera wise, yes.
Do you have a feel of what the juries are like in that county?
Well, it's Baltimore City, right? I don't think there's
I
a
think they're not
jury.
tremendously friendly to police.
I don't think there's a jury in the country that's going to listen to a story about a dad taking his kids to visit their grandmother who gets messed up with a gangbanger. I mean, it may be difficult to bring in the decedent's background as a gang member. They may try to say that's irrelevant.
Not if it goes to history of violence.
I'm not sure if there is a history of violence. I haven't found it.
I'm going to be doing a background check on him, so I'll let you know.
That's normally evidence you can only get by getting your client on the stand, and that's the biggest danger in any case.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any external cameras here, so if they have them, they're probably only on the inside.
Yeah, in this building there just weren't. Although, what's that in the upper right corner there?
Those are all lights.
Okay.
That one. No, that one actually might be a camera. Because it could be pulling power off of that light. It's hard to say from here because it's not very good resolution. But
I typically look for cameras in there.
How far are you from there, Mike?
What's up?
How far are you from there?
Oh, I'm it probably takes me about 70 minutes to get there.
Say again?
That's
70
power supply.
70 minutes?
Yeah, hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, it looks like that's most likely. Yeah, it's probably it looks just like a 1U box for power for the two lights. But it would be good to actually walk around the property and just double check because there's certain areas I can't see that are behind the tree.
No, I did that. I absolutely did that. And I canvassed, tried to talk to neighbors. There's one guy that sits outside all the time, and I didn't see anything. I'm not talking to you. It's
across the street. Does anyone have like an Amazon Ring set up?
I looked and I didn't see anything, and I'm sure police looked too.
Yeah, they're all apartments, so they probably don't have a ring or anything. Let me see. Based on the design of the building, that might actually be the same owner, same property manager. This is is this one big complex? It is, right?
It is. There's probably 200 or 300 apartments in this complex.
Yep, and I don't see any cameras. I mean, even this right there is a light, not a camera. So they really should have had cameras. Property this size should have cameras. Right there, those are cameras. These are cameras. And actually one of them's pointing directly towards where you want it to, right there. There's your footage, right there. Those are two dual lens cameras. That'll give you a wide angle view. One's aiming directly down there, and one is going directly across the street from here. So one is aiming, it looks like, over on this grassy area, and the other appears to be aiming down the street. How fast would you be able to subpoena that?
We'd be able to get, as quickly as we needed to, but the police are telling me that they've got nothing.
Yeah,
And
the police might have left. The problem is this occurred in September, so we are now
way past 90 days.
We're over 90 days past it now. I mean, I do professionally. I do some really high-end surveillance systems. It depends how it's configured, how many hard drives, the sort of quality is being stored. It's possible they have up to 6 months of recording. So I would reach out immediately because it's possible it might still have data that's going to be gone and overridden in 2 days from now. It could take 2 days to overwrite it, depending on how far back it goes. Also, sometimes these systems, when you configure it, you'll have it set up to record at a very low quality 24/7. And then when it senses motion, it'll record high quality. And that extends your time. So even if you don't have 30 terabytes of storage capacity, you can get several months. It depends how many cameras they have, but it's very possible that it could be there. If the police didn't get footage from this camera, then either they knew what was on it and they didn't want to because it would damage their case, or they are just too inept. I'm not sure if that's something you can use against them in court, but you're going to have to go out there and take some pictures of where these are pointed. These don't look like PTZs. It looks like they're probably stationary. They're probably fixed varifocal lenses, but I would definitely, as soon as you can, see exactly where they're pointed and then find out if there's any way to get that footage, not waiting for the police. I would try to subpoena it yourself.
Yeah, no, back up a little bit. Show me again where those cameras are in relation to where the scene was. So
Right.
those right there,
So these cameras right here, right?
yeah, are pointing.
So one of them, if you look at where we are right here, one of them, right? They're double lens cameras. I can show you. Hold on. Show you exactly what they are.
I'm just trying to determine exactly where they're pointed so that I know where to go to see these pictures, these cameras, and describe to the apartment complex what I'm looking for.
Yep. Here, let me show you. So it's something like this, right? So it has two lenses, two different types of sensors. Now, these cameras are usually done where, and they actually look kind of like the HIK vision. They could also potentially be PTZ. Usually, these are set up in such a way where one will do close, one will do telephoto. That's one way that technology is implemented, but it looks like pretty much one of these cameras. Now, you can see one's aiming pretty much right at us from here, right? Which means if we turn around, one is aiming up here towards this grassy area, towards this hill. The other one is aiming, it looks, right down the street. It appears to be going, it could be aiming at this parking lot.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
But it could be going down the street as well. But if they missed that, then I wouldn't be surprised if there's other cameras as well, too. Because
yeah, no, I think they probably have a bunch of cameras trying to cover all the parking lots.
I would look and see. I think that camera might be aiming right at the street, because the street is usually somewhere else that they want to film. Now I'm not seeing any other cameras that could be. Mailboxes should be on. Should be covered as well. Usually. Is that a camera? That might be another camera. Yeah, you're going to want to go up there and see where those are aimed for sure. Because if there's even a slight chance that there's still footage available, it's worth the time and effort to just try to get it. Right here might be a camera. It's hard to tell, but it looks like that could be another camera. So yeah, I would get out there and see where they're aimed, and God willing, there could potentially be enough storage capacity to still have something. So it's definitely worth trying. It really is. I would definitely give it a shot. All right. Well, that being said, let's move on. So he didn't have the potential to retreat. That's clear. So I had some other questions. Anon, did you have more questions really quick in your list that you were in the middle of? You still there? I think he disconnected.
Yeah, I only see the two of us now.
All right. Well, no, he can join back in if he wants to, but add the stream. There. I added him back. Did you want to leave the stream for now?
Oh, I boomered it a bit.
Okay. All right. Well, you're back.
I don't really have any other questions at this
Right.
time.
When you do have more, just let me know. You can chime in. I have a couple more questions. So,
the one question I had is there any way to get him into protective custody within the jail to keep him away from potential gang members? Or
he hasn't asked for it. I can suggest it to him. He feels like, so it's been a little while now, and I'll tell you, the longer it goes, the better he seems to be doing. He's in a place where he just doesn't mingle with he and his roommate. They just don't mingle in the population. He feels like he's too old to be tested. And if he is tested, that could be the worst part of this. He's really good with his hands. He's a boxer. So if somebody does test him, he could end up in trouble for something he does in jail, and then be found not guilty in this. And so he's no dummy. Yeah, he's staying out of people's way.
All right, just so you know, before I get to a couple of questions I had, we had some comments in the questions. Remember, since I've now officially been monetized by YouTube, you are all obligated to send my Jewish ass plenty of super chats. That's the law. It's science. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. You're obligated to, or you could just send me money on Venmo or PayPal. Either way, diapers are really expensive, and I just dropped so much money on COVID meds and FOIA requests. I'm now officially poor. Anyway, some questions in the chat though. Let's see. A duty to retreat when no one can do so. Absolutely safety in Maryland. Somebody had pointed out that the chair leg might have not just been a weapon to bludgeon with, but if it was broken where it was sharp, it could also be an impale weapon, right? It could also be a sharp weapon as well. Either way, it's certainly a deadly weapon without a question.
I was told it was raised over his head, so it was going to be a bludgeon.
Yeah, or he could have raised it over his head and then came down and stabbed him with it. Who knows what the maniac was thinking? Corley Drive was actually my old neighborhood. He said he learned how to shoot archery at exactly that spot back when that was a farm field. Crazy. That's Ken Grimm. Let's see. He can't retreat because he has his kids there. Yes, that's absolutely true. Watching you daily said if Alejandro touched the chair, there would be touch DNA, per Locard's transference theory. So you haven't gotten discovery yet, so we don't know about fingerprint DNA or anything like that.
That's a good point, though. And maybe that's what the state's waiting on. Maybe the state's just waiting on to lock this down, that this is fully, without a doubt, self-defense. Look, the only witness they have that is, as far as I know, is Alejandro's mother. Obviously,
why would they grant bail if that's the case? Why not grant bail if they don't feel like they're going to be prosecuting? They obviously want to prosecute. My theory, and again, I don't want to get. I know you didn't want to get into politics too much, but
No, I don't
given
mind.
the way, all right. Well, given the way Democrat leaders across the country have completely destroyed their cities, both my hometown of New York or San Francisco or Baltimore, you name it. You don't
I don't know
see this happening
about
in
New
conservative
York
runs.
City's in great shape. And it always has been. I mean, I guess it was destroyed a little bit in the 70s. Look,
Well,
I
it's
think
getting worse. Even Baltimore is setting records now for murders, which is insane. They
no,
made this
I
mess,
think
right? And I think they're desperate.
uh, Baltimore and Chicago, I heard, are the two worst cities in America for
Yeah, they
gun.
already were. Yeah, and and Philadelphia, they still managed to set a record in homicides this year, even after being the worst in the country already, which is insane. And I think that these local leaders who've done a terrible job are so desperate for any conviction they can get on a homicide that they're willing to essentially lynch a war hero, even if he's a freaking minority. They will lynch a minority genuine war hero, which I'm going to get to next, guys. Don't worry. I want to show you about some of the stuff this guy did. He's an absolute Rambo to the fullest. I think they're willing to lynch this guy just to get a W if they can manipulate a jury enough to give him one.
I hope that's not what we're dealing with. I've seen enough cases like that across the country in different places. Philadelphia, throughout the 80s. You guys aren't going to like this, but so I'm just not going to say it. But there's been no shortage of overly zealous prosecutors cutting corners and
Yeah,
doing
we can talk
correct.
about Rittenhouse. See, one of the things is not being a conservative. You're not in tune as much with what we share, the information we share, because the mainstream media just doesn't cover it, right? I've told you, I responded to you for a second earlier, and I had said, so you understand, the caricature that the media paints of conservatives is an obscene and offensive, nonsensical
House
caricature.
sitting outside, Rittenhouse sitting outside saying he wishes he had his AK-47 so he could shoot some of those looters. Um, that's not the media's fault. That's something he actually said. That's something he
No, I'm
actually.
not. No, man, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm talking about just in general. Well, the media. We can go over Rittenhouse after this, and I can explain. I can give you a litany of things that the media and the left just completely fabricated and spent a year making up and repeating about Kyle Rittenhouse. But in that case, as far as prosecutorial misconduct, you had Binger not only impugn and impeach Kyle Rittenhouse's innocence by calling into question his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, which has been case law for 60 years, that he blatantly violated his Fifth Amendment rights in open court, and that would have immediately been grounds for mistrial.
Objection in the gun case in Baltimore. It's funny that you say that.
Huh?
I just have to make that very same objection. My
Yeah.
last trial, a gun
Yeah,
case in.
it's crazy. So not only did he do that, he did other things. He brought in evidence in open court after the judge explicitly ordered him not to, and it was either holding judgment until later, and he did it without the permission of the judge. He suborned perjury by putting witnesses on the stand, knowing that they were lying when he was asking them questions. He also suborned perjury with Gage Grosskreutz by putting him on the stand and specifically asking him if his license to carry was expired, even though it was invalid. He knows the difference himself, and he asked that very specifically because if he did indeed ask invalid, then that would have opened the door for the defense to bring in the reason why it was invalid, and it was because of his felony arrest for Gage Grosskreutz. I have a whole list. I've been doing an expose on Binger. So even today, you don't have to go back to the 80s. I mean, you just said you in your last trial, you just had somebody who attacked and impugned your client's innocent based on his right to remain silent. Prosecutors do this nonstop. They always cut corners. They're not all bad guys. There are some good ones out there. And they're not all bad on the left, or they're not all bad on the right. There's a mix. Some are good, some are bad, some are on the right, some are on the left politically. But this happens all the time. And in an area where you're having an insane surge in murders, even above leading the country for the last decade, above that, right? A whole nother level beyond that, where they've just completely dropped the ball in the last year after essentially throwing police under the bus, not supporting them, cutting their funding and all that. Now they're dealing with the consequences, and they will do whatever they can just to get one W in a homicide. And I think they are more than happy to lynch a war hero to do it, because that's how these people are.
Yeah, I think you're right about some of the stuff and wrong about some of the stuff. But that's going to be the story of politics forever. When you get into the nitty gritty, there are going to be things you agree on and disagree on. I absolutely agree that there are overzealous prosecutors and prosecutors willing to do things that they should know better than to do to get convictions. I think there's an explanation for a nationwide increase in crime that has a lot to do with opiates and drugs and a flood of stimulus money to keep the economy going. I think politics really doesn't figure into that. Who's the mayor of any given city at any given time didn't have a lot to do with the Sacklers being allowed to flood America with OxyContin and a ton of heroin and carfentanil and fentanyl coming in from a ton of different places, just saturating the entire country. I mean, everybody knows somebody that has passed from an opiate overdose.
Yeah,
and then
it's crazy.
Up with COVID and a lot of cash payments going out. There's just so much more incentive and ability to murder right now than there ever has been. And I don't think politics really has a lot to do with it. If you want to talk about politics, I guess we can talk about.
No, I think just as a separate note, I think I would love for you and I to have a debate on the Rittenhouse case for a separate stream, because I would love. I can debate it with you. We can go over everything. I think it would be a lot of fun to do it together. Now that's focused on Alejandro, obviously, and we could do another stream and do that. We could do it together. It'd be a lot of fun. It'd be cool because I can bring all the right wing perspectives and the left wing perspectives, and I can kick your ass in front of everyone.
And it may be possible for you to do that. I don't know very much about it.
Or vice versa. Hey, you're the litigator. I'm not selling. Don't sell yourself short either. I just identify as a lawyer.
The only thing that I'm going to say about Rittenhouse that I think you folks overlook on that side is the argument that you use for Second Amendment, the good guy with the gun argument. Look, Rittenhouse had just shot somebody and then went running down the street. And I think the people that followed him down with the skateboard and the handgun plausibly could have been trying to keep somebody who had just shot somebody from getting away.
Okay.
And
okay, two real points, and then we'll move on from this topic for now. 2 points. Number one, in this case or any self-defense case, their perspective is irrelevant. The only perspective that matters is Kyle Rittenhouse's perspective. His perspective determines whether or not he was justified in firing. It doesn't matter what somebody else's perspective it is, however well-meaning it was. His perspective, his perception that his life was an imminent threat, an imminent danger, is all that matters. So that's why that wouldn't matter. But more importantly, if you extend that logic, that means, what if not one of those people witnessed him commit a shooting? So what if there was a misunderstanding and this guy's running down the street holding his rifle, and somebody just says, hey, that guy just shot people. Even though he's not actively threatening everybody, even though he already told people when he was running that he was running to the police, even though he's running towards the police line and is not threatening anybody, you think that a random person would have been justified going up and executing him because he overheard somebody else scream that he might have shot someone? That's insane.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was executing him. I said,
that's what I just said, right? So you think that people would have been justified in attacking somebody, right? Grabbing their gun, attacking them, trying to beat them over the head with a blunt object. You think they'd be justified in doing that because somebody was yelling, hey, that guy just shot someone, even though they have no personal firsthand knowledge whether or not he did shoot someone.
Well, he's running down the street with an AK-47. So I think
well, it was an AR-15, but he was just fleeing towards the police. Somebody had just been shot. There's gunshots all over the place. There's like 5 different people shooting off at the same time. So he was just fleeing the area and running. It's not illegal to run.
Yeah, like I said, and
But
that, well,
even if he did, even
what
if
you
he did,
and then what you are arguing against, is the whole good guy with the gun theory, because suppose there is a mass shooting, and good guy with a gun pulls his gun out and starts shooting. How's the third guy know that the good guy with a gun who just started shooting at the bad guy that started it all isn't the bad guy himself? Uh, I
well,
mean,
you don't.
that's
You don't. That's why that's not acceptable. That's why it's not. That's why that's not the acceptable standard. You can't go and start shooting somebody because you see someone holding a gun, unless you have exact firsthand knowledge that that person represents a deadly threat to you or somebody else. So if you witness them conduct a mass shooting and he shoots 10 people, he's running towards you with his rifle up, ready to shoot someone else, then you can shoot him. But if you see a guy running down the street with a gun and you haven't seen him commit a crime, for all you know, that's an undercover officer who's out there trying to find the shooter. So you can't just shoot somebody because you think they could be a threat. You can only shoot somebody if they are an imminent threat.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit this later, possibly. I think the good guy with the gun, concept is just dumb.
Yeah, but again, like I said, that doesn't matter anyway because in a self-defense case, their perspective is irrelevant. You know why? Even if he was, if he was an active shooter who was running around shooting people like that, if they didn't actually have firsthand knowledge of that, it's irrelevant. His personal perception, his perspective is all that matters. If you're determining whether or not his actions are justified under the law, the only thing that matters is his opinion. He doesn't become a criminal because somebody else thought that he was an active shooter incorrectly.
Yeah, I think that's how he ended up being acquitted, right?
Well, no, not really. I mean, that was a small part of it. He mostly got acquitted because he was justified because he only shot people who represented an imminent deadly threat to him. He didn't shoot anybody that wasn't an imminent deadly threat to him. That's why he was acquitted. The only case that the prosecution tried to make is that he lost the ability to claim self-defense because he provoked the initial attack against him. But even that argument was faulty, not only because the video was bad quality, demonstrating that provocation by raising the rifle at Joshua Zeminski, but even after he allegedly raised that rifle, he still fled, which reestablishes his right to self-defense after fleeing and running, trying to de-escalate. So even if you do provoke an initial attack, if you then run away and someone continues to chase you down, your ability and your right to self-defense is reinstated. Otherwise, it would be crazy. Otherwise, it'd be the Wild West. Otherwise, that would mean if you provoke somebody, they can hunt you down 6 hours later to enact revenge. Once you flee, you're allowed to defend yourself again. And I think that's an important detail to remember. But yeah, we could talk about this on a whole stream. I know that case up, down, and sideways. I could probably debate it with you better than most lawyers out there. So I think that'd be really fun, to be a fun exercise to do. I think we could both learn a lot. So that would be cool. Let's get back to Alejandro. I want to focus on him. And I had some more questions too. So just to let you know, friend of the channel, Bevo Fox, did say, can you actually call the apartment complex like immediately, like first thing tomorrow or even tonight if they're available? Do you have their contact info? Because if there's a chance that there's some footage that the police overlooked because they're inept, plus
No,
with all the budget cuts, I wouldn't be surprised.
I personally made the trip to the management office of the apartment and tried to ask if there was any video that existed. They came to the door, COVID, so the doors are locked. You can't walk into the management office. They came to the door. The lady took my message back to her boss. And I could see it through the door. I could see the interaction, and she comes back and she says, anything you want has to go through the police. So I called the police. And I asked the police what they were able to get. And I told the police I walked around the neighborhood looking for cameras that might have been able to pick some of this up, and I didn't see any. But do they have any? And the lead detective, Detective Perez, working the case, said, "Yeah, no, it was in a blind spot. There's nothing."
Yeah, well, I don't know about that because based on the cameras we just found live on stream, they very well may be wrong. So if you can go out there, you know what? Just DM me. If you can swing by there tomorrow or the next day or something, you can FaceTime me and I'll look at it with you. And if you might even be able to look close enough, get me close enough pictures with model numbers, I can potentially find out what cameras they are, whether or not they're stationary or PTZ. I can see if they're fixed focal lengths or what.
Camera to where they're pointed. Is there any way to tell whether or not the little camera moves around and scans?
Yeah, I could tell you if I know exactly what type of camera it is. If it's a PTZ, yeah, I can. I could also tell if it can zoom, depending if I have the model. If you get there and you can zoom in with your phone, or even if you can look close enough and get a couple close-up pictures and zoom in with your phone where I can see a model number, maybe. But definitely walk around the corners of the other buildings too and see what's there, because I guarantee you that they might be that inept where they wouldn't even see them, even if they are there.
Where are those from? Can you do that a little? Okay, all the way down there.
Yep. So it looks like one of them is going towards the parking lot, and the other one potentially is going down the street. And I've worked in places like this before. I've done systems for like large complexes.
You don't think it's going to the other side of that building, the other parking lot?
Well, no, because they're both on this corner right here behind this tree.
Yeah.
So I think there's another camera on the other side of this building, maybe aimed at that parking lot, or on the next camera, the next building aimed at the parking lot. Sure. But these two cameras on this building are on this corner, which are facing either in the parking lot and down the street, or one's in the parking lot and one's going maybe up this hill between the buildings, maybe. But that other one very well may be aimed down the street. It's very possible. Even if those are dual lens, so even if it is aimed up towards this hill, it likely does come down and get this sidewalk. So I would definitely not take the police's word for it. I wouldn't be surprised if they would intentionally ignore that, because it could potentially hurt their case. Or they might have just not seen it because they're dumb. But I mean, it's clear as day. I just found it with you live on stream, and I've done these professionally before. I've put cameras just like this in. And I can tell you, when you're doing a large property like this, the two things you want to get are the roadways and the parking lots. Those are the only things you're usually supposed to get, because you're not actually supposed to have video inside the buildings unless it's specifically requested by tenants, by the HO owners. So,
unfortunately, they probably only have 30 days worth of storage.
Well, like I said, that's not always true. It's probably likely that they won't have 90 days. It's probably unlikely we're going to be able to get footage at this point. But there's two things to keep in mind, Mike. One, it's possible that if they don't have that many cameras, it does have enough storage, or it's configured only to record HD quality on motion. If that's the case, you can get 12 months of storage capacity. I have apartment buildings that I've done surveillance systems at. So that's one. Number two, if you can get recent footage, even if it only has 20 days worth of footage, if you can get recent footage from that camera angle that shows exactly what we would need it to show, right, from just a week ago, then you can bring that to the judge and say, this would have been exculpatory evidence if the police had gotten it in time, but they didn't, and that was intentional, or it's potentially intentional. And
they
prevented them from getting us evidence that would have been exculpatory.
They have no duty. I can use it to attack the investigation at trial,
exactly.
But they have no duty to collect every last bit of evidence. But here's the thing. This happened at 8:40. Sunset was at 7:30. Are those cameras good in the dark?
Yeah, they're day-night. They're day-night. Doesn't matter. They work well in low light, and when it's nighttime, they switch to IR.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I guess just a word to the audience.
That distance?
Whoops.
Say again?
Does IR work at that distance?
That's kind of far. But you said what time is it?
8:40, and sunset was at 7:30.
Oh, it was 8:40 at night?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to illuminate it that far, but if the street lamps are bright enough, if there's enough light there, it might not have switched to IR. So it's definitely worth looking into at least, and we'll find out.
No.
What were you about to say, Anon?
I was just going to say, for anyone out there listening to this, if you're ever in an incident where you think that there might be recordings, within that 30-day window, you need to get an attorney to not only request that footage yourself, but do so in a manner that puts them on notice that they have a duty to preserve evidence.
Yeah, you try to get it the next day. Don't even wait, because sometimes people have NVRs configured incorrectly. Sometimes you're only going to have a week worth of storage capacity. I mean, there are times where things aren't set up right and you barely get any storage capacity. So,
And sometimes for a wreck that I was in, there was a camera that saw exactly what happened at the intersection, but within 24 hours, their footage had already been swiped. So, yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right. So I have some questions to run by you really quick. But there was something else in addition to that. Let me see. 1 second. There was a super chat. I would reach out to the Pipe Hitter Foundation. Their mission is to help veterans with legal issues. They helped Marine Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller, among others.
I have already.
Okay, so you have their info. Definitely reach out to them.
Yeah, no, I've already filled out their application. They know about this case. They haven't acknowledged it, but I haven't heard back from them. But I have definitely that was Eddie Gallagher, the guy Trump pardoned, the Navy SEAL. I think he was a Navy SEAL. That Trump pardoned. He launched that foundation, and they're helping out some people. Hopefully, gets around to seeing this case and decides to jump
they
in.
might be able to put some money up. I can see if I can get some eyes on it as well. I'm gonna have a lot of people post this later on. Maybe get some eyes on, and I'll make sure to tag them also. So watching you daily said, look at the 5,000 Corley Road based of the Baltimore Sun article. You mean about the incident? I don't know what you mean by that. Elaborate, or just drop a link in the chat. There's a camera on that building at 5,000 Corley Road. Oh, wait a minute. So 5,000, this is 5,011. So where would 5,000 be? Okay, so looks like down this way. So it's going to be too far, I bet. Yeah, it's going to be too far. I bet this one all the way over here is 5,000. Oh, no, that turns into a whole nother road. Maybe this one.
All right, guys, I'm going to have to run in probably about 5 minutes. I've fatherly duties to attend to.
Okay, yeah, I got to head out soon, too. Let me run through the last couple questions I had for you. I don't know why I can't. Come on. Let me ask my last couple questions. And all right, so 5,000 would be the last one down, it looks like. And the address we were on was 5,011, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so that means this one also has cameras, right? And that one is, again, there's no parking lot there. See? Oh, there's this parking lot on this side. Except there might, yeah, and then there's cameras over here too. So there's actually a bunch of cameras. Now that camera wouldn't catch anything, but the camera that's over here probably couldn't, because that's going uphill as well. So I think the only ones we can get are those front. But again, if you want to go over there and FaceTime me and walk the property with me on the line, we can look together and see what we can find.
Yeah, I can probably do that. Actually, I'm not sure when.
All right, well, let me know. Sooner the better, just in case. You never know. If they happen to have a big DVR, NVR that has a lot of storage capacity, we might get lucky, and maybe there's a day of storage left. Who knows? It's just it's worth a shot. Throw anything at the wall that sticks at this point. All right, so let me run through the last couple questions I have, since I know you have to go. All right, so I had a couple questions. Why did he flee the scene? So I know he fled the scene. He was trying to get his family to safety, and then he could turn himself in later, just like Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Kyle tried to turn himself in, but the police threatened to tear gas him. They didn't really know what was going on. They didn't understand that he was just involved in this altercation. So he went home and then went immediately to his local police department. So I assume that was his thinking. He had just left. I was always wondering why Kyle didn't at least try to call the police. But then after hearing everything at trial, more of that kind of made sense to me. So I was wondering if you had any comment on why Alejandro he had left. Do you know what he was thinking and why he didn't contact the police until he got to the hospital?
A couple of things. I think PTSD and TBI, probably impaired judgment. He had, in fact, just killed a man. Mm-hmm. He's got his kids. So yeah, the same thought occurred to me. Okay, so you leave the scene and you go someplace safe. Go get a hotel somewhere across town or something like that, and then take care of your business. He went home. He got his kids home. He made sure he was able to get his kids and his fiance home. These are mere, it's speculation. I think TBI, PTSD, he bugged out. He bugged out and said, hey, look, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go to the VA hospital that I know for the treatment that I know, and I'll turn myself in from there. But I'm going to make sure everybody's safe at home first.
Okay.
I mean, granted, it's probably maybe 7 or 8 hour drive from Baltimore to Atlanta. It's a long way where you can pull over at any time and turn yourself in. He didn't, but really that's the least of my worries.
I think it's a fine argument to say he wanted to get his kids home. He was freaking out. And he just wanted to get because he couldn't just stop and pull into a local police station and leave his family in the car and say, all right, good luck, guys. Make it home on your own. I understand that. I think a jury would understand that too.
Sees everybody involved. He just wanted to get a modicum of safety and get to his hospital, and he did that.
Yep. Okay. Second question: does he have any history of substance or alcohol abuse with the VA that's relevant that you're aware of?
Nothing relevant. He
nothing that the DA would use at trial as far as his judgment or anything like that, or rather.
No, there's just nothing relevant there. He wasn't drunk on this day, and he's never had any kind of substance abuse issues.
How long after the shooting did he turn himself in exactly?
Either. What's that?
How long was it after the actual shooting that he turned himself in?
It's the next day.
Okay, so yeah, it was within 24 hours?
Certainly within 36.
Okay. Yeah, the next day, I know what you're saying. Yeah. It could have been the next day, but much later in the day. I know. Okay. Yeah, and the only other question I had was, he left the gun there. I know there was the 3 spent casings. There was the unspent 9mm. So he cleared the chamber. And then did he leave the magazine on the ground with the gun? Is that what he did?
I haven't asked him specifically exactly, where the gun ended up at the end.
Because the police report said, this is what's weird.
And I don't think his mom has the gun. I don't know if the police have the gun or not. I haven't seen anything. It doesn't say anything about a gun being retrieved. So I'm not really sure where the gun is. He says he cleared it, and that's why there was I don't know a lot about handguns, but when I said police said they found 3 shells and a live round, he said something about. I don't think he said clearing the chamber. He described something else to me,
Yeah,
and then
unless he had a misfire, that live 9 mil round would have been him clearing the weapon to make it safe.
yeah,
So I wasn't sure what happened. I thought you said, or I thought I read somewhere that he had left the gun there. I could have sworn I had read that.
no, I think that's what he did because he doesn't have the gun and his mom doesn't have the gun. I think he just dropped the gun, fired 3 times, cleared it, threw it down, and got out.
Yeah, so I thought so. I didn't know if they were charging him with leaving the gun there on the ground as another charge. I wasn't sure about that because I thought I remembered it saying that he left the gun.
But they don't say
All
they
right.
recovered the gun.
So really quick before you go, he's got to leave everybody, but I just wanted to quickly show everybody. This is some of the stuff that Mike had posted. Some of Alejandro's commendations. Do you know exactly what commendations he received?
Yeah, there's an Army Commendation Medal that he got like 3 times. I have no idea how many Purple Hearts he's got.
Silver Heart, Silver Stars, anything like that. If you can send all that to me, that'd be great because I'd like to, write a profile where I explain it all. But just so people can see, this is just a
Yeah.
few examples of some of the stuff Mike posted. February of 05, conducting striker sweep missions in Tal Afar, Iraq. His vehicle was disabled by an IED after checking all for injuries, and despite his own injured ankle, he quickly manned the M249 in the air guard hatch, preventing any further attacks from the IAIF. Within an hour after the IED strike, PFC Gonzalez, following instinct, fired upon 2 potential SV beds, disabling them before they entered the perimeter. Then on April 5th, after the platoon discovered an IED, they came under small arms fire from the vehicle's north. He laid down suppressive fire with the M240. When the weapon malfunctioned, he was unable to fire. He quickly grabbed his carbine and his M4 carbine and continued firing until the IIF broke contact. PFC Gonzalez assisted in dismounting the team, clearing the building and surrounding areas to ensure no AIF were present and the EOD could operate safely. That's explosive ordnance disposal. On the evening of November 4th, he was tasked to set up a concertina wire to close off the west side of the bridge. While placing the first roll, his squad came under the small arms and RPG fire. Despite serious threat to his life, he demonstrated his dedication to mission accomplishment and continued to emplace the wire, denying the insurgents the ability to drive across the bridge. So that's just a taste. And then again, during a 26-hour mission, he was a gunner and helped the recovery of 3 vehicles struck by IEDs. Upon returning to the mission, an injured child he brought to the forward operating base. Staff Sergeant Gonzalez assisted the platoon medic in administering first aid and helping medevac the child. His efforts ensured the child's survival. This is a war hero who saved freaking children, right? This is not some guy who sat on a rear base typing up letters for Pogues. This is a guy who was on the front lines, a grunt, who put his life on the line in live fire, taking heavy fire on a daily basis, saving his team and his squad, looking out for his platoon, saving innocent children. This guy should not be thrown in prison for murder for being attacked by a pathetic little piece of shit gangbanger charging at him with a leg of a chair to stab him or beat him or whatever the hell he wanted to do because he was offended that an old lady asked him not to put his trash dripping on her porch. It's ridiculous. It's obscene and it's offensive, and everybody should be standing up for him. So I'm going to leave it at that. I posted this stuff on Twitter. If you want to read the rest of these examples, there's a ton of them. And Mike's going to send me more so I can write a more detailed profile on it and have Pedro Gonzalez and a bunch of other guys who are conservative writers put it out because everybody is happy to take an opportunity to speak up for a genuine American war hero who deserves our support. And I think we're going to get a lot of support there. So I'm going to have Mike shill his GoFundMe. And if you guys can spread that around, that'd be great. It's on my Twitter thread. I'm going to add it again at the bottom. But Mike, if you have anything you want to say about that, about how much money you're raising and what you'd like to see, just push the donation links a bit, and I'll include them in the description after I re-upload the video for future viewers.
Yeah, the donation link is GoFundMe, legal defense for Alejandro Gonzalez. it's more than legal defense, though. Like I said, with the threat of the gang, we want to relocate him after this ordeal. The legal ordeal is over. He's also not providing for his family right now. He started his small business and got to a place where he was able to buy his house. But yeah, everything you just went through, that's exactly what I mean by Alejandro Gonzalez is 10 times the man many of us will ever be. Time and time again, he went out on these missions and protected the troops under him and all the rest of us. It's all he knew was how to protect people, and he did it again when he went to Baltimore that day. And for that, he's been sitting in jail since September. And we can't drop the ball on this. We got to make sure that he's protected throughout the legal process. And for that, and like I said, to provide for his family during the months that this is happening, and to get him relocated when it's all done, I'm looking to raise $150,000. So far, we're not quite to 10.
What was 350?
150 is what I'm looking.
The goal is 150. Okay, yeah. It'll get up there. We'll get it up there for sure. We'll spread the word around.
Yeah, just such a good dude. I wish you could meet him too.
Yeah. So we're still working on. You're going to keep applying for bail.
Motion in. Got another
right. You're going to get at least initial discovery next week.
That's all right. I'll stay in touch and I'll let you know what I can from what I see there. I'm going to continue doing as much media and alternative media and new media as I can, at least until we get his lawyers hired and are able to jump deep into the case. Obviously, I'm his lawyer for right now, but what I expect to do is these bail reviews, which have lost so far, and then I'll be, probably second or third chair at the case in chief. We're hiring the best lawyer we can in Maryland. His name's Andrew Jezik, and Super Lawyers just came out. He's one of the top 10 lawyers in Maryland, and he's the only criminal defense lawyer in that top 10. Doesn't necessarily make him the best lawyer in Maryland, but it's pretty impressive.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for coming. I'm again going to put all the links and everything in the description, and again on Twitter. And everybody make sure to share, spread the word, let everybody else watch this stream through so they can learn all about this. And definitely spread the link for his GoFundMe, which I'm going to add into the bottom of my thread that I've been, posting this stuff on. So,
hey, thank you for doing this. I'm checking out now.
All right, thanks, Mike. I'll be in touch. Have a good one. All right, thanks everybody else for coming by. Thanks to Anonymous Lawyer for popping in. Hopefully Mike will come back and do a stream with me. I think that'd be awesome if he takes me up on that offer to debate me on Rittenhouse, which I'll just destroy him in a friendly way. I'm not, just saying that in a friendly way. But if he and I debate Rittenhouse, as you guys know, I'm intimately familiar with every detail of that case. And I don't care if somebody else is an actual criminal defense attorney. Virtually none of them have the knowledge that I do about that case. So it would be interesting, and maybe I could red pill him a bit when he realizes just how misled he was on that case. I have to go put the kids down. I'm somehow still feeling pretty okay. The last few days of COVID, I was bad. Like, I almost thought I was going to go to the hospital. And this is on YouTube, so I can't say it. But I went with what Rogan was suggesting and some other people, minus the monoclonals, and I felt like 90% better within 14 hours. It was insane. But nighttime has been really bad. I've been like really, really sick at night, but it usually happens earlier than this. It's 9:30. So far, I'm okay. So we'll see. But that's it. Thanks again, everybody, for coming. Please, please, I'm going to repost this stream with a link and a summary. Please, everybody, just retweet it on my Twitter. I want to get the word out. We got to help this dude. This dude is just look at what I read. Look at these. Look at these on this tweet where I talk about other evidence we have, blah, 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 including he was a grunt saving lives like he was Rambo. Look at these and just read these. I mean, this dude was not some lazy poke. He was a non-competitive. He was an NCO and a grunt on the front lines, fighting the enemy to the death, saving his team, squad, and platoon. This guy is legit. And Tucker had his back on a segment. We can't let this guy get thrown into prison because some piece of shit gangbanger tried to kill him in front of his kids. That's insane. This stuff has to stop. Mike didn't want to admit it. He didn't want to say it because he's going to have to go up against these people in court. But the Democrat leaders in Baltimore destroyed a city that was already turned into a piece of shit by these leaders that they've had for the last 50 years. They made it even worse over the last couple years when they pretty much stopped allowing the cops to do their job. And as a result, we've seen what happens. And I think right now they're willing to lynch a minority war hero just so they can get a W in the win column. That's my feeling about it, and we can't let it happen. So let's do what we can, see if we can help them raise some money, spread the word. I'm going to ask everybody, all the law tubers, political guys I know, I'm asking everybody if they can put the word out there and try to get some eyes on this situation and do whatever we can to help this guy out. This guy he's an American hero who needs help from American normies, and we got to stand up and do what we need to do. All right? You guys with me? Yeah? All right. That's it. Signing off. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate the support. For those who who haven't thrown me any support, it would be really cool if you could. In the description, Venmo, PayPal, all that stuff. Again, I don't sell shitty merch and ugly shirts you're never going to wear. I'm just honest about it, and I just say, hey, can I please have some money? It's a lot more honest, and I'd rather do it that way. So if you like the work that I do and you want to support this content, I'd really appreciate it if you could show me some love and send me a little bit, even if you can only donate $10 or if you could donate $1,000. I don't care. It all adds up, and it adds up quickly. So if everybody can throw me some love, I'd really appreciate it. I'm really at a point where I need it. I'm getting pretty desperate. Since I've had COVID, I had to cancel some work this week and some stories that I'm working on, like with the Chad Reed thing and with the Waukesha terrorist attack and stuff. I'm actually working on some stuff with that, with some FOIA requests that included a lot of video, which means it's like $800 worth of public records requests to be able to get HD video on discs. It's not easy. So I'm spending a lot of money trying to be an independent journalist, and it's crazy how expensive this stuff is. And it's even more crazy that actual journalists don't cover this stuff, and it's left to random people like me on Twitter who have to pick up the mantle because they decide to stop covering it unless their overlords tell them to. Anyway, thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. All the links and everything are in the description if you wanted to show me some support. And I'm going to add the GoFundMe for Alejandro Gonzalez into the description as well as repost it on my Twitter thread. Thanks. That's it. Signing off. Have a good night.